Governor Rendell, if infrastructure is up there, and I've heard you say this, with Iraq and Afghanistan and healthcare and education as a national priority, how do you make it so? Should there be a federal department for infrastructure? Should there be an infrastructure czar? How do you make it happen?
Well, I'm not so sure that the bureaucratic structures are as important as presidential and congressional commitment is. But I would like to see President Obama, having said that, I would like to see President Obama do for infrastructure what he did for energy and the environment. He had appointed Carol Browner, who sort of had the purview of several departments under her to try to develop a comprehensive energy and environmental problem. I would like to see someone be given, and I hate the word czar. Arnold, is there a better word? No, you like czar? You like czar? All right, I knew Arnold would like czar.
Czar's good.
An infrastructure czar who would have the ability to come in and oversee and try to bring together that coordination that Jay was talking about of the departments together and to build that plan over the course of time, just as I think Carol Browner is scoping out a long-term plan for our environment.
How would you create this as a national priority and institutionalize it?
Well,
That's not a dirty word.
We do need legislation. We have legislation where the federal role is so ambiguous and so spread thin that there is no clarity whatsoever to what the federal role is. Post-interstate, in all of the extra legislation, they just kept adding on, spreading the funds thinner. And I want to go back to the reference about other countries, because there is a lot we can learn from other countries. Absolutely. But some of them really represent good examples where maybe they're making very significant investments, but they're making very tough choices. And one of my favorite examples is the Eddington report in the UK, combined with the Stern report, that completely did a clean sweep review and said we've got to focus on performance, we've got to focus on critical corridors, and there wasn't like, oh, there isn't a line going through that state, you know. It was, what are the critical economic engines of our country and where do we concentrate performance? And that's why I said before we need a new national consensus about transportation, working to build our economy, to make it so that it isn't unclear whether we'll be home in a half hour or an hour and a half, and all of the economic loss associated with the poorly performing system that we have.
Doug Ford.
So I think we do need the legislation. I want to go back to Governor Rendell's notion. You also need the czar or something like the czar. There does need to be a coordinated strategy across multiple agencies. This isn't just a job for the transportation agency.
Clearly.
And I actually had the good fortune of serving in that sort of czar role at Massachusetts for Governor Romney, where I had 4 agencies that reported to me, and the whole idea was around the notion of integrating their strategies. So we had housing, environment, transportation, and energy. We need something comparable at the federal level, and indeed in every state. Now the governors can do that, because they have the ultimate authority to make everybody play by the same rules. Frequently governors are now setting up their own development cabinets, or they're creating something analogous to what we had in Massachusetts. But that notion of integration across the silos, it's crazy that...
What do you mean by the silos?
The silos of agencies. Agencies get burrowed in. They get very tunnel visioned. When I sat down to my first cabinet meeting of the 4 agencies that reported to me, first week in office, the head of the housing agency and the head of the transit agency introduced themselves to each other. They had never met. And they had been in government for 15 years each. Now, that's just ridiculous. And how can you have a housing agenda in a state if you don't marry it to your transportation agenda? That's, I think, in part what the president is now trying to do with Carol Browner, but this needs to be actually bigger than that. I know, for instance, the Energy Office and Housing are now carefully talking about how they do energy efficiency in housing in America. We need to do that in every state.